Hello to everyone and welcome back into the channel as we unfold the details that happen in the CW series Swamp Thing, episode 9, Anatomy Lesson. Now, as if the show wasn't already inspired by the comic book series, this episode had a lot of deep cut references to the comic books, no pun intended, which lends itself to a few events that happen in this episode. So careful for spoilers as we go ahead. Let's just jump right into it. Now, after having been a part of the team that captured Alec Holland, aka the Swamp Thing, Dr. Woodrue returns home to his wife, and a very compelling twist begins to unravel, and thus ushering us into the events of this episode. As seen in a similar fashion with the little girl Susie from the pilot episode, someone has also made a telepathic connection to Holland. This time by way of a prophetic dream received by Dr. Woodrue's wife, Caroline, who's already in the advanced stages of Alzheimer's, which makes this sequence a little bit more compelling once you realize the monster which is mentioned in the dream sequence is both the Swamp Thing's current state and a foreshadowing of things to come. If only Dr. Woodrue had worked with Alec, things might have turned out differently for Dr. Woodrue in the end. Meanwhile, we catch back up to Abby, who seeks the help of her friend Liz, and Abby begins to fill Liz in on everything that she knows and what she has seen since departing the CDC. And Liz, who's had a background in journalism, begins to help Abby unravel the mysteries of what has been taking place in the swamp. Now, the next two series of events are ripped straight from the comic books. Firstly, we see Avery in attendance as Dr. Woodrue begins to prep Alec for his dissection. He's used green lights in order to inhibit the Swamp Thing's powers, which may or may not be a nod to Black Lightning, but it is interesting to know. And Dr. Woodrue ensures Avery that he would be able to finish a little bit sooner if he had no interruptions. But seeing that Avery had business to attend to anyway, our two main antagonists part ways because I guess there's just more damage done their way. Now, the other comic book reference comes in the form of Daniel, who has woken up in the hospital after surviving the last episode, which at the time seemed to be fatal. Straight away, the mysterious man tells him that he's running out of time, and then proceeds to show him a vision of Abby and Liz, who are in a place that has not been identified yet, but as we see later on, begin to get into some type of trouble with some armed guards. It is later revealed in the very same scene that this is an event that happens in the future, and that the only one that can stop it is Daniel. And just like in my previous mention of the comic books, I know this scene might seem to be a little out of place when it comes to the show, then again maybe not, but if you do understand the comic book lore, this scene makes all the more sense. Abby and Liz makes a stop at Dr. Woodrue's house, finding his wife Caroline making tea, and just after a few minutes of being inside, it doesn't take long to figure out Caroline's condition, where Jason Woodrue might have been the night before, as well as the next lead in the hunt for Alec. But just before they leave, and despite the haze of Alzheimer's that set in on Caroline, she grabs Abby's hand and tells her that despite the things that Dr. Woodrue might be doing, she still remembers and knows that he's doing it all for her. Now, despite his wife's advice, Jason is carrying out an examination on who he presumes to be Alec Holland's body. However, due to the nature of the examination, which is similar to an autopsy, Alec Holland wakes up in the process. While cut open, Alec Holland and Jason are having somewhat of a conversation. And it is this, coupled with the fact that the organs that are pulled out of Alec's body resemble organs but are not actual organs, Jason Woodrue comes up with a theory that the body laying before him on the table is not Alec Holland at all, but the swamp's crude attempt to assimilate Alec's consciousness into vegetative matter. Back at the hospital, the Phantom Stranger continues to unfold the consequences of Daniel's choice back in season 6, which came to be due to being on a virtual set which was in his mind from laying in a coma. And upon wishing to be free from his restraints, he does indeed break free. And when he asks the stranger about Abby and Liz, the stranger tells him that it's up to him. And upon touching the mask, we see the transformation that the comic book has been teasing all along. As we pick back up with Maria Sunderland, she seems to be in the final stages of finalizing all of the deals that Avery had arranged with Nathan Ellery. But while trying to contact Nathan, she is stopped short by her husband, which she thought to be dead, and who through his connections have managed to have Maria committed to the Barclays mental institution. And I gotta admit, as much as Avery has been a low-down scoundrel, seeing this interaction, this drama play out between the two, it was kind of satisfying. Abby and Liz, through a little digging, has finally found the location of Woodrue's secret facility, and it's not long after they enter that they are met with the same men from Daniel's premonition. But unlike the vision, Daniel, who is now the Blue Devil, begins to take out the armed guards in brutal fashion. Jason Woodrue is alerted by the gunfire and has no choice but to leave Alec on the table. After the dust settles, Abby and Liz gather their wits, but get a nice scare from the Blue Devil. And having just seen this, she still rushes off to find Alec. Her character is either fearless or is like another trope we all know.
Let's hide in the attic.
No, in the basement. Why can't we just get in the running car?
Are you crazy? Let's hide behind the chainsaws.
Smart. Yeah, okay.
They find Alec by following his trail of breadcrumbs and turn off the green lights, which allows him to reconstitute his internal organs. But what Dr. Woodrue said has stuck in his mind, causing him to run off to the cove. Matt gets into a car wreck. Dr. Woodrue returns home to his wife, who has unwittingly overdosed on her meds. But the juicy stuff comes when Avery visits his wife in a mental institution to find some bit of closure as to why his wife cut him out of the deal with Ellery. She, however, reveals that she found out about Lucilia, hence the attempt on his life, that she should have done it sooner. And I can't wait to see the resolution to their agreement. And then the final scene of Swamp Thing, now as it were, shaken by Woodrue's theory, enters the water only to be horrified by the discovery of his own body. Now, that just about covers everything for this episode. Make sure you stay tuned in to Content Meta for more reviews like this. Please leave a like, it really helps out the channel. And also be on the lookout for the season finale review, which will drop promptly on Saturdays. And as always, until then, see you then.